I think I didn't do anything wrong, just took what I deserved when my husband wouldn't appreciate me. So when the lawyer's letter arrived, I was honestly shocked. How could he know? I thought I was so careful, but apparently he was watching everything from the start. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The silence at our dinner table had become unbearable. Elliot sat across from me, methodically cutting his chicken, while our 8-year-old daughter Maya pushed peas around her plate. The only sound was the scraping of silverware against ceramic, punctuated by the occasional sigh from Maya. "How was work today?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be as dull as everything else about my husband. "Fine," Elliot replied without looking up. "Martin's implementing new quarterly reviews. More paperwork." Martin. Even hearing his name sent a little thrill through me. Martin Grayson, the regional director, charismatic, successful, everything Elliot wasn't. At 32, I deserved better than this monotonous existence with a man who treated me like furniture. "Maya, sweetie, eat your vegetables," I said, reaching over to stroke her hair. She flinched slightly, and I noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "Are you sleeping okay?" "Mommy and Daddy, why don't you talk anymore?" Maya's question hung in the air like an accusation. Elliot finally looked up, his brown eyes meeting mine briefly before shifting to our daughter. "We're talking now, sweetheart." "No, you're not," Maya insisted with the brutal honesty only children possess. "You say words, but you don't really talk. Like at Sarah's house, her parents laughed together." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Maya, finish your dinner, and maybe if Daddy listened more, we'd have more to talk about." Elliot's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I listen, Aurelia." "Do you? Because I've been telling you for months that I'm unhappy, and you just nod and go back to your reports. What do you want me to say? You complain, but you never tell me what would actually make you happy." The accusation stung, because it was partially true, but I wasn't about to admit that. "I shouldn't have to spell it out for you, Elliot. A good husband would just know." Maya's fork clattered to her plate. "May I be excused?" "Of course, baby," I said, shooting Elliot a look that clearly blamed him for upsetting our daughter. After Maya disappeared upstairs, Elliot began clearing the table in that infuriatingly methodical way of his. I pulled out my phone to text my best friend Olivia, needing someone who actually understood me. "Another thrilling evening with Mr. Personality," I typed. "I swear he's getting worse." Her response came quickly. "Girl, you deserve so much better. Life's too short to waste on boring men." I was about to reply when another message popped up. From Martin. My heart skipped. "Thinking of you." Just then, Elliot walked back into the dining room. I quickly flipped my phone face down, but not before I caught him glancing at it. His eyes lingered on me for a moment longer than usual before he turned away. "I'm going to check on Maya," he said quietly. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I felt a mix of guilt and excitement. The guilt I pushed away. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I deserved attention, deserved to feel wanted. If Elliot couldn't provide that, well, that was his fault, wasn't it? The next morning, I called my mother while Elliot was in the shower. "Mom, I don't know what to do about Elliot," I began, settling into my usual routine of seeking validation. "What's he done now, sweetheart?" Paula Verity's voice was immediately sympathetic. "It's what he hasn't done. He's so cold, so distant. I feel like I'm married to a robot, and now it's affecting Maya. She's asking why we don't talk anymore." "Oh, honey, you know, your father was like that for a while in our marriage. Some men just don't know how to show they care. But you're still young, Aurelia. You deserve passion, romance. Life's too short to settle." "Exactly, you understand. But when I try to talk to Carol about it, she acts like Elliot's perfect." My mother-in-law had always been protective of her son, which irritated me to no end. Carol Fenwick was one of those traditional women who thought wives should just be grateful for a steady husband. "Well, Carol's always been blind when it comes to Elliot," Mom said dismissively. She raised him to think his feelings matter more than anyone else's. Don't let her guilt you into staying miserable. After hanging up, I felt better. Mum was right. I wasn't asking for too much. I just wanted to feel alive again. At work that afternoon, I found myself lingering near Martin's office. Through the glass walls, I could see him on a conference call, his silver hair catching the light, his expensive suit fitting perfectly. He was everything Elliot wasn't: confident, successful, magnetic. When he finished his call, he noticed me and waved me in. Aurelia, perfect timing. I need someone to help coordinate the Henderson account files. Think you could stay a bit late tonight? Of course, I said, probably too eagerly. Elliot's picking up Maya anyway. Excellent. You're a lifesaver. His smile made my stomach flutter. That evening, as we worked side by side in his office, Martin kept the conversation light but personal. He asked about my interests, my dreams, things Elliot hadn't bothered to ask about in years. You know, Martin said as we finished up around 8, you're wasted in admin. You have real insight into client relations. Ever think about moving up? I'd love to, but Elliot thinks I should focus on Maya right now. Martin's expression darkened slightly. That's very traditional of him, but what do you think? I think I have a lot more to offer than filing and scheduling. I couldn't agree more. When I got home that night, Elliot was helping Maya with homework at the kitchen table. They both looked up when I entered. How was the late meeting? Elliot asked, his tone neutral. Productive. Martin thinks I have potential for advancement. That's great, he said, but something in his voice suggested he wasn't entirely pleased. Maya, baby, how was school? I asked, changing the subject. Good. Daddy helped me with my math. We're learning about patterns. That's wonderful. Your daddy's very good with patterns, isn't he? I ruffled her hair, but she seemed subdued. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed with another message from Martin. Thanks for staying late. You made a long day much brighter. I was typing a response when Elliot emerged from the bathroom. Everything okay? He asked, noticing my phone. Just Olivia, I said quickly, closing the message. Girl drama. Elliot nodded, but I caught him watching me in the mirror as I brushed my teeth. There was something different in his expression, more alert, more focused. For a moment, I wondered if he suspected something, but then dismissed the thought. Elliot was many things, but perceptive about relationships wasn't one of them. As we lay in bed that night, the distance between us felt like an ocean. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Martin's smile, his confidence, the way he made me feel important. I deserved that feeling. I deserved better than this cold, silent marriage. What I didn't notice was that Elliot wasn't sleeping either, and his eyes were wide open in the darkness. 3 weeks later, I was practically floating through my days. Martin had been finding more reasons for us to work together, and our conversations had grown increasingly flirtatious. The attention was intoxicating after years of being ignored. You look radiant today, Martin said as I delivered files to his office. New perfume? Maybe, I replied coyly, enjoying the game. At home, Elliot barely noticed when I changed my shampoo, let alone perfume. It suits you. Everything about you suits you, actually. The compliment sent warmth spreading through my chest. This was what I'd been missing. Someone who actually saw me, appreciated me. Martin, I said, stepping closer to his desk, are you flirting with me? Would that be inappropriate? His eyes twinkled with mischief. Probably. Good thing I like inappropriate. That evening, Olivia and I met for drinks at our usual cafe. I was practically bursting to tell someone about the attention I'd been receiving. So Martin's been appreciative of your work? Olivia asked with a knowing smile after I'd filled her in. Very appreciative. And you know what? I deserve it. I'm 32, not dead. I deserve to feel wanted. Absolutely. Girl, you're gorgeous. Just because Elliot's too boring to notice doesn't mean other men won't. Exactly. And Martin's so sophisticated, so worldly. He's been divorced for 3 years. He knows how to treat a woman. Olivia leaned forward conspiratorially. So, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I mean, I'm married. To a man who treats you like a roommate. Honey, you deserve passion. You deserve to feel alive. When I got home that night, I found Elliot in his study, working on his laptop as usual. Maya was already in bed. "How was girls' night?" he asked without looking up from his screen. "Fine. Olivia says hi." I paused in the doorway, studying his profile. When had he gotten so ordinary? "Elliot, when's the last time you told me I looked beautiful?" He finally looked up, seeming genuinely confused by the question. What brought this on?" "Just answer the question." "I think you're beautiful, Aurelia. I always have." "That's not what I asked. When's the last time you said it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. I'm not good with words like that." "No, you're not." The disappointment in my voice was real. "Martin told me I looked radiant today. A simple compliment, but it made my whole day. When's the last time you made my day, Elliot?" Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or anger, but his voice remained level. "I'm sorry. I'll try to do better." "Don't try. Either you want to or you don't." I left him there and went upstairs, feeling justified in my frustration. A good husband wouldn't need to be coached on how to appreciate his wife. The next day, Martin asked me to lunch, just to discuss the Morrison project, he said with a wink that suggested otherwise. At the restaurant, conversation flowed easily. Martin was charming, attentive, asking about my opinions on everything from the menu to office politics. It was heady stuff after years of Elliot's distracted nods. "Can I ask you something personal?" Martin said over dessert. "Shoot." "Are you happy at home?" The question hung between us, loaded with possibility. What kind of question is that? The kind a man asks when he's wondering if a beautiful woman is available. My heart raced. "Martin, I know you're married, but marriage isn't prison, Aurelia. Life's too short to waste on people who don't appreciate what they have." That afternoon, back at the office, I found myself checking my reflection constantly, hyper-aware of Martin's presence. When he walked by my desk, his hand briefly touched my shoulder. "Thank you for lunch," he murmured. "We should do it again soon." That evening, I was in an unusually good mood. Even Maya commented on it. "Mommy, you're smiley today," she said as I helped her with homework. "Am I? Well, Mommy had a good day at work." "Did Daddy have a good day too?" I glanced at Elliot, who was preparing dinner with his usual methodical precision. "I don't know, sweetheart. Did you, Elliot?" "It was fine," he said, not turning around. "See? Daddy's days are always just fine." I said it lightly, but there was an edge to my voice. Some people actually know how to enjoy themselves. Elliot's shoulders tensed, but he didn't respond. Later that week, Olivia came over for dinner. I'd been looking forward to it. Finally, some lively conversation at our table. "So, Elliot," Olivia said with false brightness, "how's work? Still doing whatever it is you do?" "Account management," he replied politely. "It's going well." "That's nice. Aurelia tells me you work for that gorgeous boss of hers. Martin something?" I shot her a warning look, but she continued innocently. "Grayson," Elliot said quietly. "Right. Aurelia says he's quite the charmer. Very successful. Very— what was the word you used, Aurelia? Magnetic." I felt heat creep up my neck. "I said he was a good leader." "Oh, that's right. A good leader. Must be nice to work for someone so inspiring." The tension at the table was thick enough to cut. Maya had stopped eating and was looking between the adults with worried eyes. "Maya, why don't you go watch TV?" I suggested. After she left, Elliot finally spoke. "Is there something you want to tell me, Aurelia?" "What do you mean?" "About your boss. About why you've been working late so often. About why you light up when you talk about him but barely speak to me." Olivia jumped in. "Oh my God, Elliot, you're being paranoid. Aurelia's just finally working somewhere she's appreciated. Maybe if you paid her half as much attention as her boss does, she wouldn't need to find validation elsewhere." "Olivia," I said, but I didn't really want her to stop. "No, it's true. You take her for granted, Elliot. When's the last time you took her somewhere nice? When's the last time you made her feel special?" Elliot's face had gone very still. I think maybe you should go, Olivia. Excuse me? I think you should leave. Now. After Olivia left in a huff, Elliot and I faced each other across the kitchen. Are you having an affair? He asked quietly. The direct question caught me off guard. How can you even ask me that? Because you're different. Because you mock me in front of your friends. Because you talk about your boss like he's some kind of hero while treating me like I'm invisible. You are invisible, Elliot. You're boring and predictable, and you make me feel like I'm dying inside. The words poured out before I could stop them. And no, I'm not having an affair, but maybe I should be. Maybe I should find someone who actually wants me. Elliot stared at me for a long moment. I've always wanted you, Aurelia. I just didn't realize I had to prove it every day to keep you. He left the kitchen, and I heard him go upstairs to check on Maya. I stood there, shaking with adrenaline and guilt and anger. Why should I feel guilty? I wasn't the one who'd let our marriage die of neglect. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. Hope you're having a better evening than I am. Wish I had some company. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. What did you have in mind? His reply came quickly. Dinner tomorrow? Just the two of us? I typed back, I'd like that. As I hit send, I felt a mixture of excitement and terror. I wasn't crossing any lines yet. It was just dinner. But deep down, I knew it was the beginning of something that would change everything. What I didn't know was that Elliot was upstairs, not comforting Maya, but sitting on the edge of our bed, with his head in his hands, finally understanding that his marriage was over. And unlike me, he was already thinking about what came next. The dinner with Martin had been everything I'd dreamed of. Candlelit, intimate, filled with meaningful conversation and lingering looks. He'd chosen an upscale restaurant across town, somewhere we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. You're different from other women, he'd said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. More real, more honest about what you want. I'd felt beautiful, desired, alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. When he'd walked me to my car and kissed me softly, I'd melted completely. This is complicated, I'd whispered against his lips. The best things usually are, he'd replied. Now, 2 weeks later, our relationship had shifted into something deeper and more dangerous. We found excuses to work late together, exchanged increasingly intimate texts, and stolen moments in his office had become the highlight of my days. At home, the atmosphere had grown arctic. Elliot barely spoke to me, though he was as attentive to Maya as ever. I told myself I didn't care. He'd brought this on himself with years of neglect. Mom, something's wrong with Daddy, Maya said one morning, as I braided her hair for school. What do you mean, sweetheart? He's sad all the time, and he looks at you funny, like he's trying to figure something out. I forced a smile. Daddy's just stressed about work. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings. Are you getting divorced? The question hit me like a slap. Maya, why would you ask that? Because Sarah's parents acted like you and Daddy before they got divorced. They stopped talking and started being mean to each other. We're not being mean, baby. We're just going through a rough patch. All married people do sometimes. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Was I ready for my marriage to end? The thought both terrified and thrilled me. That weekend, we had dinner plans with Elliot's colleagues, something I'd normally dread, but now I saw it as an opportunity. Martin would be there, and I was looking forward to seeing him in a social setting. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a dress I knew looked good on me. When I came downstairs, Elliot was waiting by the door. You look nice, he said quietly. Thank you. It was the first compliment he'd given me in weeks, but it felt hollow compared to Martin's passionate praise. At the restaurant, I made sure to sit where I could see Martin's table. He looked devastatingly handsome in his navy suit, and when he caught my eye and smiled, I felt my cheeks flush. Aurelia seems in good spirits tonight, commented Janet, one of Elliot's co-workers. She's been energetic lately, Elliot replied carefully. As the evening progressed, I found myself becoming increasingly bold. When Martin stopped by our table to greet everyone, I made sure to laugh extra loudly at his jokes and touch his arm when I spoke to him. "Martin, you must tell them about that conference in Chicago," I said, looking up at him adoringly. "Such fascinating stories, not like the usual boring work talk we get around here." Elliot's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Oh, just the usual corporate drama," Martin said modestly, but he was clearly enjoying the attention. "Don't be modest. You handled that crisis with the Peterson account brilliantly. It's so refreshing to work with someone who actually knows how to take charge and make things exciting." The table had gone quiet. I realized I was being obvious, but the wine had made me reckless. "Some people," I continued, looking pointedly at Elliot, "are content to just go through the motions. But Martin actually brings passion to everything he does." Elliot set down his fork. "Excuse me," he said quietly, and left the table. "Oh dear," Janet murmured. "Maybe I should—" "He's fine," I said dismissively. "He just gets overwhelmed in social situations. Not everyone can handle stimulating conversation." Martin looked uncomfortable now. "Perhaps I should go check on him." "Why? He's a grown man. If he can't handle hearing his wife praised for her work, that's his problem." The rest of the table exchanged glances. I realized I'd gone too far, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. The wine, the attention from Martin, the months of feeling unappreciated, it all boiled over. "Aurelia," Janet said gently, "maybe we should call it tonight." "Because Elliot can't handle a little adult conversation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He shuts down whenever anything gets remotely interesting." Elliot returned to the table, his face pale but composed. "We should go," he said to me. "Maya's babysitter needs to leave by 11. "Of course," I said sarcastically. "God forbid we stay out past bedtime. Wouldn't want to do anything spontaneous or fun." The ride home was silent except for the sound of my own breathing, which seemed unnaturally loud. I was starting to sober up and realize how badly I'd behaved, but I wasn't ready to admit it. "That was humiliating," Elliot said finally as we pulled into our driveway. "What was humiliating was watching you run away from the table like a child." "I left because my wife was flirting with my boss in front of my colleagues." "I was not flirting. I was having an adult conversation about work. Maybe if you ever had anything interesting to say, you'd understand the difference." Elliot turned off the engine and sat still for a moment. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Because the woman I married wouldn't have done what you just did." "Maybe the woman you married was dying of boredom, and you just never noticed." Inside, we paid the babysitter in tense silence. After she left, Elliot went straight upstairs to check on Maya, while I poured myself another glass of wine. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. "Are you okay?" That seemed intense. I typed back, "I'm fine, just tired of pretending everything's perfect. Want to talk about it? I'm a good listener, not tonight, but thank you for caring. I care more than you know." I stared at that message for a long time, feeling a mixture of guilt and excitement. Someone cared about me. Someone saw me as more than just a wife and mother going through the motions. When Elliot came back downstairs, I was curled up on the couch with my wine. "Maya was awake," he said. "She heard us fighting." "We weren't fighting. We were having a discussion." "She's 8 years old, Aurelia. She doesn't understand why her parents can't be in the same room without tension. Then maybe you should work on being more interesting company." Elliot stared at me for a long moment. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight." "Fine by me." After he left, I sat alone in the living room, finishing my wine and replaying the evening. I knew I'd behaved badly, but I couldn't bring myself to feel truly sorry. For the first time in years, I'd felt powerful, desirable, alive. If Elliot couldn't handle that, maybe it was time to seriously consider what I wanted from my life. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Martin. "Sweet dreams, beautiful." I smiled and typed back, "You too." Upstairs, I could hear Elliot moving around in the guest room. Part of me wanted to go to him, to apologize, to try to fix things, but a larger part of me was already planning what I'd wear to work on Monday, already anticipating Martin's smile when I walked into his office. I was playing with fire, and I knew it, but after years of feeling cold and invisible, The heat was intoxicating. I wasn't ready to give it up. What I didn't realize was that Elliot wasn't just hurt, he was finally paying attention. And unlike me, he was thinking clearly about consequences. The Monday after the disastrous dinner, I arrived at work, determined to smooth things over with Martin. I'd spent the weekend replaying our text exchange and wondering if I'd made him uncomfortable with my public display. But when I knocked on his office door, he seemed distracted, barely looking up from his computer. "Martin, do you have a minute?" "Actually, I'm swamped today. Can we catch up later?" His dismissive tone stung. "Of course. I just wanted to apologize if I made things awkward on Saturday." "No need to apologize. These things happen." He still hadn't really looked at me. "I think it's best if we keep things professional for a while, though." My stomach dropped. "Professional? You know how office gossip can be. Better to be careful." I left his office feeling humiliated and confused. Was he pulling back because of my behavior, or because of pressure from above? Either way, the rejection was devastating. At home, things weren't any better. Elliot had maintained his polite distance, speaking to me only when necessary, and sleeping in the guest room. Maya had started having nightmares, crawling into bed with me in the middle of the night. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy sleep in your room anymore?" she asked one morning over breakfast. "Daddy's been snoring," I lied. "It was keeping Mommy awake." "But Daddy doesn't snore." Out of the mouths of babes. "Sometimes grown-ups need space to think, sweetheart. It doesn't mean anything's wrong." But everything was wrong, and I was starting to panic. My marriage was falling apart. My affair was stalling before it had really begun, and I felt more alone than ever. I called my mother for support. "He's being ridiculous," Mom said after I'd given her a carefully edited version of recent events. "So you complimented your boss at a dinner party. Big deal. Elliot's always been too sensitive." "I just don't know what to do, Mom. He won't talk to me, won't touch me. It's like living with a stranger." "Well, maybe it's time to consider your options, honey. You're still young. You don't have to waste your life on a man who doesn't appreciate you." "But Maya will be fine. Children are resilient, and she'll be better off with a happy mother than miserable parents." The conversation made me feel both better and worse. Better because someone was validating my feelings. Worse because it forced me to confront the possibility that my marriage might actually be over. That afternoon, I was surprised when Bethany Cole from HR called me into her office. "Nothing serious," she assured me as I sat down nervously. "Just a routine check-in. How are things going in your department?" "Fine," I said carefully. "Is there a specific concern?" "Not at all. We just like to touch base periodically, make sure everyone's comfortable with their working relationships." Something in her tone made me suspicious. Working relationships? You know, with supervisors, colleagues. Sometimes lines can get blurred, especially in smaller departments where people work closely together. My heart started racing. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Aurelia. Just reminding you that we have policies about workplace relationships for everyone's protection." After the meeting, I felt paranoid and exposed. Had someone reported something? Had Martin said something to protect himself? That evening, I was helping Maya with homework when Elliot came home from work earlier than usual. He looked tired but oddly calm. "How was school today, sweetheart?" he asked Maya, kissing the top of her head. "Good. We learned about the water cycle. Did you know that the same water has been on Earth for millions of years?" "I did know that. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Nothing really disappears, it just changes form." Something in his tone made me look up from Maya's math worksheet. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced?" Maya asked suddenly. Elliot's eyes never left mine. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" "Kids at school say their parents stopped sleeping in the same room before they got divorced." "Well," Elliot said carefully, "sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times, but no matter what happens between Mommy and me, we'll always love you more than anything in the world." "Elliot," I started, but he held up a hand. "Maya, why don't you finish your homework in your room? I need to talk to Mommy about grown-up things." After Maya reluctantly gathered her books and left, Elliot sat down across from me at the kitchen table. "We need to discuss some things," he said. "If this is about Saturday night, I already apologized to Martin. I had too much wine and—" "This isn't about Saturday night, Aurelia. This is about the last 3 months." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you light up when you talk about your boss, the way you've been treating me like I'm the enemy. You're being paranoid." "Am I? Then you won't mind showing me your phone?" The request hit me like a physical blow. "That's ridiculous. I'm not showing you my phone. We're married, not in prison. Innocent people don't usually mind proving their innocence." "I can't believe you're doing this. You're acting crazy, Elliot. Maybe you should talk to someone." "I am talking to someone. I'm talking to you, and I'm asking you directly. Are you having an affair with Martin Grayson?" The question hung in the air between us. I could feel my face burning, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "How dare you?" I whispered. "How dare you accuse me of that?" "So you're saying no?" "I'm saying you're sick if you think I'd do something like that." Elliot studied my face for a long moment. "Okay," he said finally. "If you say nothing's happening, then nothing's happening." But something in his tone suggested he didn't believe me at all. That night, I lay awake in our bed, alone, since Elliot was still sleeping in the guest room, replaying the conversation. I'd technically told the truth. I wasn't having an affair, not really. A few kisses, some flirting, romantic dinners, that wasn't the same thing as a full-blown affair. But even as I tried to justify my actions to myself, I knew I was splitting hairs. I was emotionally involved with another man, and if circumstances had been different, it would have become physical by now. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. "Thinking about you." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. Something had shifted in the last few days, and I was starting to feel like I was in over my head. The next morning, I found a strange envelope in our mailbox addressed to me. The return address was from a law firm I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter requesting my presence for a consultation regarding marital assets and custody arrangements. The letter was polite but formal, and it made my blood run cold. I was still staring at it when Elliot came downstairs, already dressed for work. "Morning," he said neutrally, pouring himself coffee. "Elliot," I said, holding up the letter. "What is this?" He glanced at it, his expression unreadable. "It looks like a letter from a lawyer." Did you contact a lawyer?" "I contacted several lawyers, actually, just to understand my options." "Your options?" My voice was getting shrill. "What options?" "The options a man has when his marriage is falling apart." "Our marriage isn't falling apart. We're just going through a rough patch." Elliot set down his coffee cup and looked at me directly for the first time in days. "Aurelia, we need to talk, really talk, tonight after Maya goes to bed." "What's there to talk about? You're the one who's given up on us." "Have I? Or have I finally started paying attention?" He left for work without another word, leaving me standing in the kitchen with the lawyer's letter in my trembling hands. For the first time since this whole thing started, I was truly scared. That evening felt like waiting for a sentence I already knew was coming. Maya sensed it too, filling the silence at dinner with nervous chatter. After she went to bed, Elliot came downstairs with a folder in his hand and an expression I didn't recognize. "Aurelia," he said evenly, "I think it's time we were honest." Inside the folder was everything: text messages with Martin, restaurant receipts, my falsified work hours. My pulse pounded as he laid the evidence out like exhibits in a trial. "Your phone backs up to our shared cloud," he said quietly. "You forgot to change the password." I tried to explain, to downplay, but his voice stayed calm. "You've been lying for months. This isn't miscommunication, it's betrayal." Then he handed me the final paper, a petition for legal separation. "You're ending our marriage over a few messages?" I demanded. "I'm protecting Maya," he said, "from thinking this is normal." I begged, promised counseling, swore it hadn't been physical. But he saw through me. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. He outlined custody, Maya staying with him, me getting weekends, and finances that made it clear he'd already planned everything. When I accused him of throwing away 15 years, he said simply, "You did that." As he went upstairs, I asked what to tell Maya. "Tell her that choices have consequences," he said, and then he was gone, leaving me surrounded by papers that told the story of a marriage I'd destroyed one lie at a time. Even then, some part of me still believed I was the one who'd been wronged. The next 3 months were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and watching my life quietly fall apart. Elliot stayed polite but detached, his focus entirely on Maya. My lawyer warned me early. He's documented everything. The affair, the lies, your absences. He looks like the stable parent. You don't. Martin vanished completely after Elliot filed for separation, transferred to another office without a word. Even my friends began to withdraw. "You should have been more careful," one said. "Maya deserves stability." For the first time, I felt truly alone. At home, Elliot handled everything: school, counseling, routines. He was steady, patient, everything I hadn't been. And when Maya asked, "Is it because you were mean to Daddy?" I couldn't answer. By February, the court hearing felt like formality. Elliot's lawyer presented a perfect case. My explanations, loneliness, neglect, needing connection, sounded like excuses. The judge granted him primary custody. I got weekends, shared holidays, and a modest allowance. Outside, Elliot told me, "I didn't want to win. I wanted my wife back, but you made that impossible." 6 months later, in my small apartment, Maya spent weekends with me. She was quiet, cautious, older somehow. Watching Elliot help her with homework through the kitchen window, I finally understood what I'd really lost. It wasn't a marriage. It was the trust of the only 2 people who'd ever truly loved me. And I'd traded it all for a fantasy that disappeared the moment reality arrived. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.